Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Flint from Flint Analytics. I thought I'd come down to the beach, get out of the office for my fourth episode of Flint Friday. And this is a series where I'm looking at the key lessons from my career to date. And we're moving forward into a period of my life. I've just moved to Brisbane, I've just started my second job, and that was for a bank up there. Now, the three things I really took out of that period of time were: one, don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't think that your specialisation is everything, and make sure that label isn't narrow. Secondly, there is going to be breadth in your role. There is your key thing that you're good at, but there's stuff outside of that. Really embrace that if you can. And third, try to develop current weaknesses, because those weaknesses can become strengths. So I'm going to talk about those points in a little bit more detail. So I arrived really feeling like I was a specialist. I was a world-class credit risk modeler. And so I moved into this job for this bank up in Brisbane, and I felt that their best utilisation of my time was to do just that. But the problem is that, there's other things to do. You can't just have somebody a lot of the time being that one specialist. There's other things to do. So I needed to do a lot of testing. I needed to do a lot of model implementations and a lot of IT work. And I was seconded to the data warehousing team in order to help them get the extracts that we needed for some modeling. And so all of those kind of peripheral things that I kind of was like, maybe I did think I was a little bit above it, but they were things that I needed to do in that role. And initially I fought that. And I also fought that I had a boss that arrived at the same time as me, and he didn't have the credit risk modelling knowledge at the level that I had. And in some ways I looked at it in that narrow lens of, I'm better at that than him. So, I didn't really respect what he offered the role. And through my time there, I really learnt the benefit that he brought to my career and the development that I was able to get from working with him. And also, if I can fast forward a little bit to Flint Analytics and what we're doing, we've got a 5-stage process for the end-to-end analytics, the end-to-end analytical process. And I'd only have one of those things if I just kept that narrow mindset. And so I really think it's very important that you don't pigeonhole, don't label yourself as a thing. Try and go, how can I broaden that? How can I go, I'm not just a credit risk modeler, I'm credit risk analytics. Or, as I went forward in my life, it wasn't just credit risk. I was able to take that part out of it. So think about that and really look for the breadth that is naturally occurrent in that role, because an organisation will have opportunities for you to add value in different areas, even if that's not necessarily your strength. So the next part I really want to talk about is, how I see the three types of skills that people have. People have strengths and they have weaknesses. Now, in the corporate space, weaknesses are reworded to a positive term of opportunity. And they are opportunities. It's a really good word for weaknesses, because some weaknesses can become strengths. I would describe myself as a very good driver. But, 2 weeks after starting to learn to drive, and maybe even 2 months after starting to learn to drive, I was a very horrible driver. And so hopefully that analogy goes with it, with a lot of skills that you have yourself developed, where you go, I was horrible at this. Even if you go back to as a baby, how we learned to walk and those sorts of things. Weaknesses are current weaknesses. They're not permanent weaknesses. There is opportunity there. So get out and try and look for those opportunities to actually develop those weaknesses and see if they become strengths. Now, not everything will be. I don't I guess, subscribe to an idea that you can make anything a strength. But what I would say is take it out for a ride, devote some time to it, and see if it can be. Because I think I've mentioned this before in my videos, my writing was a key weakness of mine. But through development of it, I would now say my business writing with analytics is a key strength of what I add to any role or any opportunity. So think about it in those three terms. And I guess I'd like to sort of potentially give you an example of how I've gone through that. Is, I arrived as a credit risk modeler to this bank in Brisbane that had never really had one that was as I guess, detailed and technical in that space as I was. And but my knowledge of the industry, my knowledge of banking products was subpar. It really was. It was something we were encouraged to learn in my first job, but we didn't really get into the nuts and bolts as we should have to actually understand the products at the level. And so I guess I came in with that real weakness, and I was able to learn that to the point that I became an industry thought leader in some elements of credit risk modeling. And I think that's a big journey for me in terms of actually understanding the industry concept, industry knowledge that you need. But then take it further, and then, okay, well, that was within the credit risk industry. Through the recent roles I've had in electricity, through the recent roles I've had in transportation, and prior to that with some exposure around banking and around market risk and insurance and reinsurance and life insurance, I've really shown that my ability to come into an industry, learn the key nuances of that industry, and then apply analytics into that space is now well developed. However, back then they were not strengths of mine, and nobody now is going to hire me or have me work on a project for them based off the skills that I showed back in 2007, 2006. So we have to continually grow, but look for those weaknesses that you yourself know are weaknesses, but look for opportunities to try and strengthen those and see whether you can strengthen those. Spend the time and see if there is the ability for you to make that a strength. And if there isn't, then move on to the next thing. But give it the time and work on it, and I guess utilize any breadth there is in your role. So that's my take on the things I learned from my first 3 years at that bank. I'll be back next week, so thanks for listening, and as always, appreciate any comments you have about those ideas that I've put forward, and any thoughts you have on, I guess, moving outside of a speciality. Thank you.